There's a lot of different kinds of iguanas that live on the Galapagos Islands. The one that's probably most famous is the marine iguana, since it's the only place anywhere in the world where iguanas have basically adapted to a marine lifestyle. They're able to be underwater for 25 minutes, and they primarily feed on algae that's underwater. So they hang out by the shore, and they dive into the water, and they chew on some algae, and then they come back up. But there's also some land iguanas, like the one you see right behind me. This fellow has an even lazier lifestyle, actually much lazier than the marine iguana, since it doesn't have the courage to get into the water. It basically sits underneath these cactus trees that you see around here, like those in the background. And these cactus trees are pretty old. Some of them are as old as 100 years. Basically, they grow a trunk as they start to drop some of their petals, and they get a little bit taller. When those petals fall on the ground, and the only thing left behind is that stumpy trunk, these guys will gobble up the cactuses that fall. They're not actually strong enough to climb on the trees. They don't have the claws to do that, so they just have to wait until they get a meal. And the nice thing is those cactuses are really well adapted to storing a lot of water, so that's also how they get their hydration, and so they're able to survive in a desert environment like this. There's some other iguanas that live on land here that can climb the cactuses, but these guys are not able to, so they're able to get through the spines with their thick skin, but then they just kind of have to wait. And if a meal doesn't come, then they just bask in the sun until it does. They can live for a very long time because they use so little energy, and they're cold-blooded, so they don't use as much energy to regulate their heat. So they spend most of their time just chilling, basking in the sun like this, with very few predators to have to worry about. It's kind of hard to see them because of the camouflage that they're using, but these iguanas behind me are unique in the world. They're called marine iguanas, and the reason they're called marine iguanas is because they were basically washed up on shore here once, a long time ago, on these islands, and they're land animals that only eat plants and have nothing really they can do to get back to wherever they came from. So they had to figure out how to adapt, to survive, or just to die. Some of them died. Some of them happened to be able to be daring enough and agile enough that they could swim, and then get some food in the water. Some of them also happened to have big enough lips so that they could handle the surf and still be able to eat some of the food there. Some of them had glands that would allow them to shoot out some of the salt water that came with all their food. By and large, all the traits that happened to be best for these species to survive were the ones that helped the ones who could survive pass on their traits to the next generation when they reproduce. The ones who didn't have those traits, those animals died. And so these animals evolved from being land iguanas to being marine iguanas. So right behind me are a bunch of those marine iguanas we were looking at earlier. You really can't find these anywhere else in the world. Everywhere else, the iguanas are going to be stuck on land, but once they got washed up on shore here in the Galapagos, they really couldn't do anything but get in the water if they were going to get any kind of food. They eat a lot of seaweed, a lot of other small plants, and unfortunately, because they're in the ocean so much, they get a lot of salt in their diet, which isn't good for them. So they developed this adaptation with their glands where they'll actually sneeze out some of the salt every once in a while. And they just kind of shoot it out through their nose like they're shooting milk out when somebody laughs. When they do that, all the salt comes out and they can just digest the food, which keeps them a lot healthier. Also, say hello to our buddy. See you later. How's it going?